Our talkback line is open on 1-800-316-316. We're getting right into the Constitution in just a few moments. But Gabriel, let's take a caller, an anonymous caller, who's been waiting patiently. Welcome along.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can. So welcome. What are your thoughts?
Yes, look, I'm coming from a different angle, and for me, it's a very personal matter. And look, I think first of all, I just want to say that, you know, being believers and in Christ, we want the best outcome for all Australians. And I don't see Aboriginal people as separate, although I do realize that there's been a great injustice that has been done against them in the past, and I think they're still suffering a lot. Those injustices need to be addressed and it needs to be rectified. But I do not think that the referendum will be the right outcome. And I have various reasons for that. And my personal reason for that is that I come from a country, you can probably hear from my accent, but I come from a country that we had a referendum in the 90s. And one of the major problems in our country, I came from South Africa, was race. And all I know is that before we had the first election, we had a referendum where South Africans needed to decide if we wanted to give everybody a vote. And that's totally a different situation than what we're facing now. The thing is that at that time, most of the South Africans did agree that the apartheid laws was not fair, and we did decide that everybody should be treated equal. And being a Christian, that is honestly the way that we should have voted, and I don't regret voting that.
And what you're illustrating here is that a vote like that in South Africa was a vote to actually create a national unity, a level of equality. And we've been talking just in the first part of our conversation about the risk that if you have a yes vote, you'll actually be voting for a wedge and division. Let's bring our guest in, Gabriel Moens. What are your thoughts for our caller?
Well, the argument that has been made was a backward-looking argument. Yes, many injustices have occurred in the past, but it doesn't follow therefrom, that people who are alive today, 200 years later, more than 200 years, should be asked to pay for injustices and crimes sometimes which have been committed by our ancestors. The people today are very genuine. They want to protect the welfare of every member of our society, and they would like to enhance the quality of life of all Australians, including Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. But to ask Australians who are alive today to pay for the sins committed by their ancestors 250 years ago is really a backward-looking argument, which does not enable people to look to the future. We must look to the future, and if we look at the future, we know that we have to be unified as a people. We have to treat people well, regardless of their race, because it is a characteristic over which people have no control. Burdens and benefits should be distributed without regard to a person's race. There must be political equality in this country, and if we achieve that, that is the best thing that we can do, not only for non-Indigenous people, but especially for Indigenous people.
Wonderful, and I want to thank our caller with that South African accent, yes, and raising something very important too, and that is the migrant voice, yes, in this whole debate about yes or no. And I know that listeners can hear your beautiful Flemish accent, Gabriel. The migrant community, they might be thinking, we came here from another country, we're not feeling the same guilt burden that some might be feeling, that, when we start to talk about this emotional level of, people who are victims and how do we make reparations, all sorts of things like that. Coming from the migrant community, how do you think most migrants feel about the yes or the no?
Well, I really don't know, Neil. I can only speak for myself, but I would assume that few migrant people want to be involved in this particular debate. I'm very happy about the caller from South Africa, because even though she is a migrant, she obviously wants to contribute to a very important political debate. And I think that more members of the migrant communities should do that, make a tangible contribution to important societal and political debates in Australia.
Thanks so much to that caller. Our talkback line is open on 1-800-316-316. You might have your own say, whether you're on the yes or the no side. Love to hear from you. 1-800-316-316.